Welcome back, luscious listeners, to the Wisdom of Womanhood podcast. I am Miss Showy Moon and have beautiful, blossoming Pippa just making a human over there.
I know. I think baby's having a growth spurt the last 2 or 3 days because I'm just 5 o'clock. I'm like, I just function after 5 o'clock. I'm like, okay, baby,
Yep,
we need to
time.
go lie down. But
I
I,
love
I
it.
definitely, I keep calling myself Mama Pippa because you're Mama Chow. I'm like, Mama
Mm,
Pippa.
yeah,
Yeah,
cute.
because
We can meet a mama.
I know. And I can't believe, to all you mums listening, I can't believe how quick they grow, like from like week 10 to week 13. I couldn't believe the scan picture. I was like, it's like a fully formed human now. It's tiny, but like the head shrunk. Obviously now a head's a head. And I was like, oh, it doesn't look like an alien anymore. It looks like a little human. It's just like
Amazing.
staring at
It's
all
just
the
unbelievable.
images, and I was just loving,
Mm.
absolutely loving and smothering this picture of the little nose.
Oh, to know.
Little baby's
Oh,
nose. I was
I
like,
still have
I
it.
got all teary. I said, Chris, look at the baby's nose. It's like
I
this tiny
know.
little thing.
Oh, I have a video from one of Edie's scans where she's got the hiccups in my tummy.
Oh,
Yeah, and it's a video. I think it's it wasn't the first reveal of the pregnancy we did, but it was pretty early on. And yeah, so she's like jumping like with the
oh,
hiccups in my tummy in the scan, and they sent me through the video. I was like, oh, that's just the
oh my God. I'm
cutest
obsessed.
thing.
I said, I'm happy to say I'm obsessed. I keep looking at this little nose. And when she was doing this, like, obviously she did a lot of prodding on my tummy because it was the Down syndrome
Mhm.
scan. So she had to do a lot of prodding, and she kept it there, and she's like, God, your baby's a little wriggler. And I was like, he or she's moving. I was going to say he or she's moving like so much. They were like, like
Yeah.
just I was like, I didn't realize they move so much. Like she just, yeah, I could just stay there all day with the ultrasound on my belly. I was like, I just could stare at it. I just was so, I said to friends, like, it hasn't sank in. I feel like some days I'm like, oh, I am pregnant. Like, it just doesn't sink in some days until, like, apparently when you've birthed them and they're in your arms, you're like, holy shit.
Mhm. It is one of the weirdest things to try and get your head around.
Yeah.
I still, even after having like three of them, I'd still be in my third pregnancy. And I would just think to myself, I understand that I'm making a human being, but it is one of the strangest concepts to kind of really
Yeah.
grasp when it's happening. I
Yeah.
said to someone the other day, I don't know, we're talking about our achievements, and I was like, well, I've made 6 eyeballs.
Yeah. I've grew six
I've
kidneys.
made 3 hearts, And I was like, I made them in my body.
I
I
know.
was like, that's so weird.
I was doing that most days with Chris. I'd wake up and my app would send me a notification like, you're growing a kidney today, or you're growing a what, and I'd be like, look, Chris, I'm growing a kidney today, or I'm growing fingernails today. And I just was like, it just made me feel so grateful for my body, and also for like what my body's capable of doing. Just it's that what Wayne Dyer talks about, like that from the moment of conception, everything's figured out. Like you don't have to say, hey, come on, grow fingernails, come on. Just this miraculous energy just grows this beautiful human. So I'm like, you grow, baby.
Yes, go get it. Get it, girl. I know, I think it's a girl.
I know. Well, I will find out next week. I'm paying the early. It's like $140. You find out 5 weeks early, and I was like, 15 weeks you can find out. So I'm going for the 15-week scan, and yeah, because I'm impatient.
Well, hopefully they spread their legs because
Yes.
even at the 20-week scan, sometimes it's almost impossible to see what's going
Mm,
on.
I know. We'll have to see, but yeah, I'm excited for that. And even if I can't see it, I'll just wait to 20 weeks. Feel
Mm.
good.
Cool.
So today's topic is something that I've listened to. I've been going through the last 6 to 12 months. I'd say I've felt more, more safe to feel this emotion than I ever have being in New Zealand, because I've got people like Shawi and other women that I've met that allow, just not even allow me. 'Cause it's not like saying I'm allowing you to do this. It's just feeling that I can be vulnerable in a safe space where I don't feel judged, and I don't feel like feeling this emotion is a bad thing. So we're going to be talking about reframing rage and anger, because as a good girl, which is me, anger was just something I was
Oh,
never really taught
do
to
you still
feel.
want that to be you? You're still
Good
claiming
girl.
that as your title.
Well, I shall say, because I have good girl behaviors, did have good girl behaviors. I'm a bad girl deep down, though. I have both. Me and Chris have these conversations. I'm good and bad. So yeah, so having been brought up with good girl behaviors, but wanting to be the good girl, wanting to be the good student, wanting to be the good, and I think I never was taught that
Yeah.
anger was safe and normal and sacred. And I look back to childhood, and I think I feel I had a valid reason to feel angry at times. I look back to like my bowel issues, being bullied, like and I feel like I never felt like I felt sad. I would cry a lot, but then sometimes I feel like anger creeps in to mask the sadness too, doesn't it? Like when
Yeah.
there's grief there, when there's hurt there, you know. So I think it's going to be interesting how we both navigate rage and anger, because I just learned so much from you. I think I just do this podcast because I just love learning from Showy.
Thank you. We get to hang out.
Yay. So it's just like, like I literally expressed anger in the most safest way possible back in beginning of February, when I
Yeah.
spoke about this on the podcast. When I was driving, I just had a early miscarriage again, and I was just like, fuck, in the car. And I just released this like screaming, just I was pissed off. I was so pissed off. And I just released it, and I didn't feel judged. I just was like, that felt really fucking good. And I
That
remember
was really
I just
cool.
sent you a
Mm.
voice note, and I was crying, but it was just my body just, I think the tears were just like the back end of it, of just being like, oh, I felt so good, because crying is such a beautiful release for the body. And so yeah, definitely, definitely. I think sometimes as well, like I feel like we just spoke about this prior to recording. I've always been known as Pip, who hardly ever gets angry. Nothing really pisses off Pip, does it? These are like what I've heard of other people. Nothing really pisses off Pip. She's always really happy, and she's always really positive and smiley. But she has a long fuse. Takes a lot to piss Pip off. So I feel like I have this identity to keep up with. Like, so I'm not allowed to be pissed off because I've got this long fuse, as long as New Zealand say. And I'm like,
Mhm.
hang on, but some things are gonna piss me off or make me angry or make me just, and some things that make me angry, I'm passionate about. And I think that's the key, is like this sacred this sacred rage, this sacred there's two ways of looking at it, isn't it? The dark and the light. Like rage can turn into something really harmful and something
Mhm.
quite dark and really not sacred. Then you have like the other
Depending
end
on
of it
how
where
we
it's
act
like,
upon it.
yeah. And there's
Mhm.
another way of being like, hey, you know what? I am feeling really angry today, and how can I honor that emotion? Because it is an emotion, a human emotion that we are allowed to feel. So I think just having this like identity that I had to keep on top of for years and years and years, I've
Mm.
been breaking that down. And I
Mhm.
took a lot from that with you, Shari, where you talk about this. You just said it again, like the identity of being the good girl. And I feel like that's why this happens, is because we have this like we want to keep this like identity of like I was always so scared to feel anger, because I'm like, oh, people just think I've turned into an angry person, and I'm scared to be
Mm.
judged as an angry person. But
And
actually,
what is your, so this is great. What is your perception of an angry person? You know, when that
like
fear was
a bit
coming
like
up
for
of I
me a
can't feel or
bitch,
express
like
that. A
like
bitch.
bitchy,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to be a bitch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I've
And
had the memories I've got is the being bullied, say for example, is a big one. Like they were just so angry and they'd shout and mean, and I'd be like, so they're angry at me and I've not done anything wrong, but so if I'm angry and I don't want to shout, like, oh no, I should
then
stay
I'm a bully.
quiet. Pardon?
The anger is also says associated with being a
Yes.
bully.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I'm angry, then that means I'm being a bully. It means I'm being a bitch. And then what
Yeah.
else were you making that mean? You know, so then what? If you were the bully and the bitch, what else would that mean? Where was the fear going even deeper than that? Would it mean
I'd
that
be
then
alone.
you
I would be
you'd
lonely.
be
I'd
on
be
your own?
alone. No one would like me. Because
Well
Pip,
done. Yeah.
there's a version of Pip that just wants to be liked, just wants to be loved
Mm-hmm.
by everybody, just wants to be
Mm-hmm.
seen as this beautiful, cute little girl. And I remember Chris saying to me at the weekend, we always have moments where we say, you know, what we love about each other. And Chris said, I love what he's always loved about me is I have this innocence about me. It's not being naive. He said it's just this innocence of this like little girl that I said to my mum when I spoke to her on the phone, I was like, even when I was like 20 or 21, I still want my mum and dad to see me as like a little girl, you know, just like, and I feel like that's just our inner child, just expressing that, hey, I still want to be the little girl and be the innocent, you know, little. And I think that diving into that, like what you just said about what it means to me to be angry, that was coming up for me a few months ago. And it was like, oh, just that resistance was there. And I'm trying to invite anger in as a safe emotion and to feel it in a safe space. And I do that really well with the likes of you and Mary and other people in my life in New Zealand. I said that to Chris yesterday. I said, you know, I've never felt as safe as I do to express how I feel ever than when I got to New Zealand. And Chris just said, because you've got beautiful women around you and men, you know, he said, and I see that, like he said, you've got these beautiful women who, he said, you just talk so lovely about them. And like, you know, and he's obviously met you and he met Mary last week. And he said, they're just great people. And you can feel that they love you and that they're holding that safe space. And that was really key for me. So I love you.
I love you. And what's so beautiful is that you're alchemizing the old story, right? Because the
Yeah.
old story was anger equals loneliness,
Yeah.
essentially. And now you're at a place where you're calling in community where anger is welcomed, where all of you is welcome. So then you get to do the work to dilute that so that anger does not equal loneliness and being kicked out of the community and being labeled as bully or bitch or whatever it is. Now you've cultivated a space around you where your fullest expression is welcome. So anger actually gets to lead to deeper connection because you're
Mm.
showing more of your true self and more
Yeah.
of actually the authenticity of you, not just the parts of you that you've felt safe to display in order to try and keep yourself in the community. You know, so there's this beautiful orchestration, and you've done the work to come into the spaces to surround yourself with those people. And now it's like beautiful. So dive deeper in, dive deeper in. You know, what if you were in your absolute wildest rage, anger release, you know, around the people? Still, there would be no judgment. You know, we've all done it with each other. You know, and it's that's been such a big shift for you, right? Is actually that rewriting of the story of
Yeah.
I'm not going to have the people around me if I'm the angry woman, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. That's a
It
really lovely
yeah,
reflection.
it it's quite interesting to see how it affected Chris, because when I started to have these angry, you know, spurts of I'm irritated or you know, I'm angry or pissed off, and it made Chris uncomfortable, and we had a really good chat about it because his perception of anger is unsafe. It's very unsafe. He had a mother who was constantly angry, and he had to deal with all of his emotions by himself. So anger's not a safe emotion to feel for him. And so when he sees his wife having angry moments, that brings up a lot of uncomfortable energy for him. Like he's at fault. Because he said as a child, I asked him why that comes up for him. And he said, well, as a child, if my mum was angry, it was my fault. It's always my
Yeah.
fault. And he said, so
And
when
he
my
can't
wife's
fix
angry,
that.
it's my fault, even though
Yeah.
it wasn't his fault. So we had that really good chat. And I said,
Mm.
what would support you in the best way? If I'm feeling angry, just saying, hey, babe, I have all these like angry moments. I'm just going to take myself out so it doesn't bring up uncomfortable emotions for you without you, you know, because I don't want to put your nervous system into overload where I'm like, you need to sit with me and get through this. Like, I just need to be like, hey, I'm going to go and deal with my emotion and I'll come back when I'm ready. And that's beautiful for Chris and I to do. And I've seen it now. He's starting to go, oh, okay. So he's gradually knowing that anger's safe, is safe to feel. But when he gets protective over me, because he's extra protective now because I've got baby in me, he's like,
Mm.
something really pissed him off last week. And I was like, oh, and it actually turned me on a little bit. And I was like, you know, when you get angry, I was kind of like turned on a little bit. And it just like, and then I realized how
Mm.
like you can bring in sensual energy to move through rage and move through anger. Like it doesn't have to be like
Absolutely.
sexual all the time, like masturbating and stuff. But like I've learned from a podcast I listened to last week. Deja Blue talked about reframing rage and about like doing like sensual dance and touch and like
Yep.
I was like, wow, yeah, like I
Moving it.
just forgot about that. Like you've got all the tools here, like even though you've got your own
Mhm.
clitoris to play with, and it's great. And you've got your
Mhm.
own, you've got things that make you feel good. Like there's this beautiful dance in rage and dance in anger, and how we can move through it safely and beautifully.
I have had some of my biggest anger releases in my own self-pleasure practices.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about like half an hour of absolute screaming, whole body shaking, tears. I've had some really big ones where I've been in a with a lover, with lovers as well, and they've held me through it. But it is because often it does take a deeper dive of the tools, the modalities to move anger through, especially for those of us who it has not felt safe with.
Yeah.
You know, often, and I will say often, when that has been the patterning, in order to start rewiring that patterning, it takes some major somatic shifts because you actually have to rewrite the pattern that is happening in the nervous system, you
Mhm.
know, so it doesn't go into freeze, you know, whenever we start to feel there. So you don't go into dissociation. And so I'm a big advocate for exactly what you said, allowing the body, yeah, through breath and through touch and through pleasure and through movement, because anger is a very momentum based frequency and energy. It actually wants space to move. You know, anger can be passion and motivation and inspiration,
Mhm.
and can set you on a gorgeous trajectory when you develop a really healthy relationship with it. And it's also a great way to be able to communicate with you when your boundaries have been crossed. You know,
Mm.
and when we can start, like I love how using the terminology of reframing, when we can start investigating with a sense of anger is one of the various emotions in the whole human array of emotions that we feel. There are no good or bad emotions. There are simply emotions. Our actions and how we react to those emotions we're feeling inside our body, those behaviors can be negative or positive.
Mm.
But the actual emotion itself, the frequency of it, is an opportunity. You know, it's an opportunity to go, okay, what is my body telling me right now? Anger is one of the topic sessions that I do in the program that we do with our girls. And also I spoke to the guys that are putting the curriculum together for our rites of passage with our teenage boys, and we're going to be doing anger with that as well, because it's very simple things that we're not taught often, most of us at an early age, of even identifying the sensations in our body that are the first response to anger. When I do that with the girls, you know, we look at our whole body and it's different for everyone. Often similar things, but it's different. You know, it'll be like the sweaty palms, the nauseous stomach, the feeling of wanting to move and run, or it might be the feeling of going into, like, the whole body goes into shock. It might be flushes, it might be cold,
Yeah.
it might be an aching in the head, it might be shoulders. And so, like, in this conversation, I think it's really important to, if you are wanting to journey through anger a bit more, is to become really attuned to your body
Yeah.
and your responses to that emotion in your body, to then be able to recognize. And then what's beautiful is then you can recognize the situation, the circumstance that may have led to it. But you've got to know what's happening inside your body first.
Yeah.
And, you know, like you were saying before, this is a theory that I have. And it's just through my observations of working with my clients, and the work I've done with young people and myself and my relationships. I feel as if within society, anger is a lot more accepted for men as opposed to sadness, which is often not accepted for men. And as women, we are the opposite.
Yeah.
Sadness is a lot more accepted for us as women, and anger is not as much. And
Mm.
there's major stereotypes around men that cry and major stereotypes around women that rage.
Yeah.
And you know, when we earn this conversation, it's really important. And I know that you all know this listening, but when we speak about the releasing of anger and the rage, like, it's never, ever, ever okay in the release of anger to hurt yourself, hurt anybody else, or destroy and damage things, like
Yeah.
to the point of destruction. That is the unhealthy behaviors that are exhibited often when there's a buildup. And also, it is never okay for anybody to inflict any kind of harmful behavior towards you that comes in as expressed in
Yeah.
anger. Um, It's really important that there's a lot of normalized behavior. And I still see it in relationships I know now. I see the subtleties, the man that or the woman that will like slam things on the bench in front or smash the door closed, or threatening behavior. That is just as damaging to the system as the punch in the face. And this is why it's important for us to recognize, and this is why this conversation is so important. What can happen in our society? I mean, death essentially, is what can happen when we don't have a healthy relationship to anger. And so it's, as a collective, really reframing and reclaiming, right? Anger as a beautiful expression and a sign. Our body is telling us, I am feeling unsafe, or I am feeling uncomfortable in this, or something is happening. Great. Listen. Don't dismiss it. Like, listen and feel the sensations in the body, but then what you choose to do next is completely up to you. And that's the bit that I've heard this when I've worked with clients. I've heard things like, all the men in our family are angry, or like, oh no, like I'm not an angry person. And these comments and these interesting things that people say in their relationship to anger. And it's a very disempowering statements around anger.
Yeah. I would say that all the time. I'm not an angry person. Yeah,
I'm
that
not
was
an angry
my
person, which is incredibly disempowering, because when you say I'm not an angry person, you are
depressing.
orphaning a part of yourself.
Yeah.
You're separating a part of who you are and going, oh, that's not me. And so then this fractured part of you is sitting there wanting to be seen. And they're like, oh, we're always angry. It's just part of, like, first of all, anger does not fucking run in generational lines. That's not accurate. Their traumas can run, when we look at epigenetics. But the moment that you say that, you're giving your power over to an identity that isn't helpful for you.
Well, that's why you get angry, isn't it? Because you want to call back your power, and that's why, like, you give your power away, you want to call your power back, and that's like it's like your engine's going, we need it, like, because like you said, anger can be passion, motivation, inspiration,
Totally.
and
Momentum,
yeah.
excitement.
So, like, for example, I don't watch the news. I choose not to. I'm not a news person. I don't like the news. And if I do ever find news or I see some articles online, I come across them accidentally. I know I'm speaking for quite a few people. They'll see things of the war, and just the sheer sadness and grief that's happening there is like I feel the anger, and I feel like these things have to be felt, because like that makes me feel angry. Like
We're
it's
supposed to feel angry about
that
shit.
that's what I mean. Like, and it's like,
Yeah.
so how, like, so there's two things. There's that, what you spoke about, the anger of like calling back your power. So like your anger's there to be like, that's not okay. Like that's crossed a boundary for me, or that wasn't, I didn't like that that triggered me. There's so many different elements to it, but then it's like there's an element of wanting to call back your power, and because we give our power away so much. And the other thing was, I want to kind of ask this for a friend that's just stayed here last night. I'm not going to give her name away just for confidentiality, but she's in a situation right now where she is having difficulty with a person that she has to see 2 or 3 times a week. She can change her situation by switching. Basically, her horse is at stables, and the woman at the stables is awful, and they just get into just this real loggerhead. And she said to me last night, I'm just getting really angry now. It getting to a point where she walks all over me. I'm getting really angry. Like, it's just, and she knows she needs to move. She needs to move stables. And the reason why she's staying there is because it's cheap and it's affordable. But it got me thinking about, like, there's so many people listening that go, either I don't feel anger because they're similar to me, where anger wasn't safe, or anger was being a bitch, or you've told yourself for years you're not an angry person. And again, what you just said about the collective of women feeling anger is not the norm, and men feeling anger is the norm. So for women, especially, like, because this is mostly for women, this podcast is, if women are listening right now and they're like, oh, I feel angry every day at whatever it is, if it's the husband, the kids, the job, whatever it is, or life, or there's women just that there's an element of you start looking for it, you are attracting that frequency, aren't you? Like, you're in that, I'm an angry person. So there's the opposite. I am an angry person. And you start to say, like, I'm angry. I'm always angry. So your being is like, let's look for stuff to be angry about. Same as what I said to you before about, like, I would drop into, say I'm angry, and I'm not allowing myself to feel it, and I'm ignoring it, I'm suppressing it, I will start to look for things to be offended. I will scan my whole day consciously to look for things to be offended. I'll go on social media. I'll go and maybe watch the news. I'll go on some articles because I'm looking for something to just really rage that up. Where I'm not actually sitting there going, "Hey, just bring some presence into this emotion. What's coming up for you? Take some time for you." Like I said with Chris, I'll say, "Hey, I'm feeling angry." I'll go away for 5 minutes and calm down, take a breath. But it's like women who don't know these tools and are quite new to all this, like how do we navigate that reframing of rage and anger for them?
Okay, two major parts. First of all, let's change the language from I am angry to I am feeling anger right now.
Yes, love
Because
it.
as soon as you put the I am, then you are identifying as that thing.
Yes.
And then the ego is like, that's the identity. Let's be the
Yeah.
identity.
Yeah.
We never are any emotion. We feel
I was
emotion.
actually saying you could call
We
yourself like,
aren't emotion.
I am an all emotion feeler.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I am me, and
I am me.
today
Yeah,
I'm
that I am's
feeling
really
this.
important. Yeah. Mm,
So that's okay. And then, all right, first thing is if you are easily irritated, you most likely have some kind of nervous system dysregulation.
yeah.
If you're sitting on that like constant and it
On
could be
edge.
things, yeah, and it could be things like you're sleep deprived because you got young children, and there might be circumstances that are feeding into that. So the nervous system dysregulation conversation comes from no judgment. It comes from a let's look at what's happening in the body that's contributing to that being on edge, and being like this and being extra irritable, because our natural normal state is not in that place of feeling constantly irritated.
Yeah.
You could take a look at your cycle if you're a woman as well and see if there are particular times that you do notice. I really don't like going into the conversation of I've got my period, I'm an angry woman.
Yeah,
That
I
kind of
know.
fucks me
Yeah.
off a little bit.
Mm.
It's also in that same conversation of like, I'm pregnant, so I'm going to eat like 2 plates of
Yeah.
shitty food.
Yeah.
And I say that with love, but I don't like us using empowering things of being a woman and to excuse behaviors. Same thing as like, it's a full moon, I'm going to be crazy. Like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
understand that they impact our hormones, but what things are we feeding into? But looking at your cycle, like I know that I often feel different things during different times, but not necessarily. Sometimes I do. But looking at what's happening in the body. So, nervous system regulation strategies and tools. I think I've gone through them before, but there are so many basic things that you can be doing that just help to regulate your system all the time. Like havening, the breath, and these are just regulation tools. Then there's also some modalities. So with the breath, really simply like taking an exhale that's twice as long as your inhale and staying in that like until you feel calm again, or bring these in as regular practices. EFT, doing tapping, hand on the back of the neck, pressure around the body, because in those moments where you're particularly irritable, the body is feeling activated and the body is feeling like it's not safe. And so it tries to go into that fight mode, right? So doing some work on the body to help it feel safe, and bring these in all the time if you're in that state. If you are struggling still and you're doing some of these things, I'll be looking at your diet. What are you
Yeah.
eating? You're eating, you're waking up, you're having coffee, you're having a high sugar breakfast or no breakfast, you're eating shitty food throughout the day, you're finishing the day, you're having 7 glasses of wine or even
Mm.
2 glasses of wine. And again, and I know this is being received without judgment. You can be triggered in it if you like, but your health is my priority, even if it's not yours right now.
Yeah.
Like take a look. What are you putting into your body? Because if you are putting shitty food into your body, you're going to feel shitty.
Yeah.
How much exercise are you getting? Are you moving? And that movement can be according to your capacity right now. Again, super basic. And I know we're all in different life stages. I was the fucking mother at home with the 3 young kids. I know, now I'm like the single mother with the job and the kids. And so I understand. And also I'm going to call you out and be like, I really don't think there's anyone that couldn't move for 20 minutes a day. Whether that's in your house doing some yoga, unless there's physical conditions that are impacting that, 100% I understand. But like, take fucking responsibility, and take your power back and stop being at the whim of these emotions that you're letting define you. And then further from that, if there are things that are sitting really prevalently, seek some support and help. it isn't a natural human state to be in constant feelings of irritation, irritability. Come and see Pippa and I, and get some somatic therapy work done and get some, do some breath work initiations and everything, because there is support out there and there are so many things we can do that can help our natural state. And then energy release as well. So things like screaming into the pillow, things like punching the punching bag if you've got it, like, because especially with anger, like all the other things I think are great for other emotions, but anger often wants to move through. And it often is like that screaming, allowing the body to move, going into pleasure practice, and starting to make sounds and allow those sounds to start to turn into anger. Like Pippa's beautiful experience a couple of months ago, which is something I often recommend to my clients. When you're driving, start to scream, start to sing, start to scream, and just see what happens. We do an activity with the girls at the schools, and we shake a bottle. We have a fizzy bottle and we shake it, and we say the things that make us angry, or they don't need to say it. They can just, put the energy in there, because it's to see what happens when it all explodes. One of the girls in last term's program, she's like, I don't really know what makes me angry. And I said, just start shaking it, babe. See what happens, So she's standing there. She's like 10 years old, she starts shaking it. And then she's like, and then she feels it. She's like, oh, this makes me angry. And this, and this, and this. And I'm like, yeah. And then they're like screaming. And it was just, and they're like, we can't do this at home. Like them being given that safe space to
to do it.
scream and move and say the things. And it was really beautiful. So there are some great practices when navigating through our relationship to anger that is super, super supportive. There is one other piece to this that is really important. If you, like myself, have lived in a home with family violence, and your relationship to anger is like anger equals violence, and have been exposed to anger being displayed in those ways, I really, really encourage you to get some support, because those traumatic experiences of being exposed to violence and that way, they are living inside your body. And if you have not done anything to move them through there yet, it will be very challenging to reach the most calm, clear, balanced version of you without moving those experiences through your body, particularly if you're a young, I had suppressed memories of being exposed to a lot of violence, and through the work that I've done, a lot of them have come out now, and I've remembered them and processed them and moved them through. But I kind of had a similar story to you, but it was like really extreme, is that anger equals physical and emotional harm at a really big escalated version of that. And so, I've been in the same journey of, I know that especially after the kids' dad and I separated, honestly, probably for 3 years, every time I raised my voice to my children, I went straight back to, oh, you're becoming the abusive mother, just like your mother was. Because even a raising of voice for me it equaled violence, and it equaled the mother as the perpetrator of violence. And it took a lot of work for me to move through that and to accept my humanness, and to accept that an expression of frustration is okay, and to be kinder towards myself, and to be completely honest, it is still something that I work on. And that kindness towards myself of particularly when it comes to the expression of frustration and anger. And so I had this beautiful full circle moment the other day, because I'm learning a lot about anger from my 7-year-old son, who it is his default emotion, and has been, and it's getting better and better, but has been quite, how am I going to word this? His expressions of anger have led to some major ripples within our family, coming up and being very physically violent towards me and slamming things, and it's impacted the other two in many ways as well. They've voiced in the past they feel very, very scared of him when he's in those angry places, And, if he was any older, I could be very seriously physically harmed.
Yeah.
I have, from actually both of my boys and their expression of anger, I have been physically hurt before.
Yeah.
And so we've been supporting, particularly my youngest. And we had this beautiful moment the other day. And I don't know if I've talked about it on the podcast, but it's really important for this conversation because we've been teaching him, or I've been doing the work to teach him what anger feels like in the body and to be able to recognize that, and then the things that we do to help that. So we do a lot of breath work, and he has like things that he can use and touch and stuff that help, and movement and all the different tools. And so the other day, my daughter did something, I don't even remember what it was, made a comment or something, and she was going through some stuff, and it's really funny because I don't swear around my kids, and so I went, gosh. Like, I can't, I'm still like really tightly in my, I don't like, so I was just like this really loud gosh. And no judgment towards people that, that swear or whatever. I don't, and I choose not to. And then I was shaking because I was like, oh. And I was standing in the kitchen and I was shaking my arms because I could feel it through my arms. And then my 7-year-old son was standing there and he goes, Mom, can you feel a volcano in your tummy? And I said, actually, I can feel it in my arms. I've got this anger. I'm feeling frustrated. It's all through my arms. I can just feel it. And so he came over to me and I knelt down with him. And I was still just shaking and moving it through and breathing. And then he led me into this beautiful, like, regulation space. Yeah. So he started havening me. That's what I do with him. From the shoulders, he just started like running his hands down my shoulders and he goes, Mum, let's breathe. And he lifts my arms up on the inhale and then drops them on the exhale. And he's like guiding me through it. And then we stay in that. And he just does like some gentle stuff through here and my shoulders and just places his hands on me. And then he goes, how are you feeling now? I said, oh my gosh, I'm feeling so much better. Thank you so much. And this is the fucking power of doing this work. Like, sometimes it's still him, in it, but the power of us allowing ourselves to be in the expression of anger, not in a way that it harms people. I didn't harm anyone in that, but I let it be known, so that then my 7-year-old son got to have this moment of, first of all, witnessing in me the things he's learning to witness in himself, and knew the tools, and then had this moment of like, yeah, like, I help Mum when she's feeling angry, and it's okay to feel angry. I think one of the most damaging things that we can do, not only for ourselves but for our young people, is to unintentionally or intentionally infiltrate an idea that they're not allowed to feel any kind of that array of emotions within the spectrum of what it is to be human, and to try and become this perfect, always regulated, always happy. Like, they're going to grow up and try and attain that, and they're not going to be able to because it's not real. And then they're going to feel like there's something wrong with it, which is what happened to me. I felt like there was something wrong with me, when I started feeling things and I wasn't this perfect version of me. So yeah, I still am learning how to create a deeper relationship to safety within anger. And holding the space for my son has been incredibly therapeutic in so many ways. And I know for so many of you mums who have children that are neurodiverse, and that it is more challenging to be in the world sometimes, and are more activated and sensory sensitive, which is very similar to my 7-year-old. And I also witnessed that it can be a lot more extreme than that. And I fucking commend you, for doing everything that you can to just hold that space for the expressions of anger that can be there. And you're not going to always get it right, and that's okay. But just keep doing the best you can, because it will rewrite these stories that a lot of us had to grow up with around anger.
I love all what you said then, because I think like we have this habit as parents, I know Chris and I do, of we just want you to be happy. And I pulled myself upon that a couple of times and said to Chris, like, even though it comes from a place of love and it comes from a place of, just wanting to be a loving parent, it's kind of saying to the kid, oh, my mum and dad just want me to be happy and I can't be anything else. So I've just said, hey, we just want you to be you. No matter what it
Totally.
is, we just want you to be you. And we're
Mm-hmm.
here for you through it all. So my eldest stepson, he got really angry on a game, and I said, "Hey, bud, if you get angry on a game, just take some space away from it, because obviously it's getting on your nerves, and it's good to take some space." And I mentioned that ages ago. So the other day, I think I did a reel about it. I posted it. He just took himself outside with the punching gloves and went to the punching bag, and I was like, "Good for you." I was like, "I'm so proud of you." I was like, "Yeah," I was giving him a
Mm,
clap, and like, and
mm,
it just I wanted to celebrate the fact that it's okay to be angry, and that you took your own space, you self-regulated there. And I said that was you regulating yourself, because you got into a space where you were like right in fight mode because you were angry. And I said then you wanted to go and expel that energy somewhere, and I said that's awesome. And then the youngest does it too, like he when he gets, because he's ADHD Asperger's, so he's got, he takes medication for that, and his anger kind of comes like a spurt, like but it's definitely a lot better now, because I feel like there's definitely that safe space for them to feel. And
mm.
we've watching what we say at like the end of the day when we pick them up from school, like instead of saying have you had a good day, because that kind of then puts it into a box of, well, my day wasn't
Mhm.
good, we're saying how was your day, like how
Absolutely
what like just,
open-ended.
and like you said, we're not perfect, and sometimes I'll go, oh no, no, sorry, I meant to say how was your day, like sorry. And I was like, if
Mhm.
you've had a really bad day, like it's okay, and like just share it. I've had a shit day too, I've had this happen. And I share it with the kids too, like I don't share everything, but I share some things. Like I had a frustrating day today, the PC wasn't working, or last week there was, when we tried to record one time, the Wi-Fi wasn't working, or there's people blowing trees. I said I couldn't record today, it was a bit frustrating, but it's okay. So it's just like,
Yeah, it's okay to be
and I said this to
frustrated.
Chris, like it's we're coming from different angles, because he's again, his childhood was very different to mine.
Mhm.
So I remember a few weeks ago, I was really hormonal, and my hormones were really like, I was very irritable. Like I just felt it. I was like, I can't, it was like I couldn't control it. It was so bizarre. And I remember there was 2 mornings where we have to remind the youngest that everyone's still asleep. You wake up early, so be mindful that your big brother's still asleep and we're asleep upstairs. And he comes down, he's like banging and he's singing because he's got his headphones on, because he loves life and he's a morning person. And I got so irritable, and I came down, I said, "That's twice you've woke me up in a week." And I felt so bad after I said this, but I was like, "Hey bud, you just woke me up again, and I'm pregnant, and I don't I just that made me sad." I was like, "We told you that before," and I just got really like, and Chris said, "Are you okay?" I said, "No, I shouldn't have said that." I said I should have just sat with him quietly and not yelled. I didn't really yell, but it was more of a raised, I was annoyed. And even last week, having conversation with the kids about not eating sugar of a morning, and then them not listening to you, that upset me. And I was like, and I said to Chris, like, I'm allowed to be upset if you you kind of really kind with your kids, and you say, hey, like, we love you, you can have some sugar after dinner, but the morning sugar puts you in hyper mode. And the
Yeah.
ripple effect of that is your elder brother gets annoyed because he's not a morning person. Dad and I struggle to get you all ready for school because you're off the walls, bouncing off the walls. It'd be really helpful if you could not have sugar in the morning and you can have some at night. And then the next morning, he just didn't listen. And it just really upset me. But I think that was an element of like letting go of control, and then bringing in that emotion of like, oh, I just felt like really let down. And I just said to Chris,
Mhm.
that's okay to feel that way. And I spoke to my mum about it, and she said, how do you think we felt when it was like, hey, Pip, right, your curfew's 10 o'clock this weekend when you were like 16 and you came in at 11. And I was like, so I said, it's just being a
Mhm.
parent, and it's navigating that. And I think what you said about the tools with how women feel and like our kids, that we're not always going to get it right, because we don't always get it right. But it's easy to just stay in that slump of feeling like shit. Like I've been there. It's easy to just be in that state of like, I feel like shit, I'm just gonna, like you say, you don't move, you just stay in that
Mhm.
effect, like I want looking to be offended. And it's just, to pull yourself out of that takes a lot of courage, and it takes a lot of strength. And I honor anyone who's moving through that, because it can be really challenging
Mhm.
to feel.
Mhm.
To feel is really, can be really challenging. But also to ask yourself, where am I not meeting my own needs? Like,
Yeah.
like Shawi was a single mom of 3 kids, and I'm sure finding time for herself was, sometimes impossible. But that, like, I'm the same as
Right.
Shawi. Like, if you can't find 20 minutes in your day, wake up 20 minutes earlier. Like, if you're setting an
Yeah.
alarm at 6, just try and get up 15 minutes earlier, and just say, hey, I'm just gonna have that 15 minutes before the kids wake up. I was doing that with the kids. I knew Wyatt would wake up at 6, so I'd wake up at
Mhm.
5:30 to get some meditation done because it was quiet in the house.
Mhm.
And on a daily basis, where are you ignoring your needs, and where are you not sharing your needs? Like Chris and I are always sharing our needs. Like, I just had a little cry this morning because I was a bit overwhelmed this morning, and he just said, what do you need? And I said, you're doing it. And he just hugged me. You know, it just takes that little bit of just, and it's hard at first to share your needs, because for me, sharing my needs, I became a burden. That was my ultimate, that's what I was my kind of language in my head. To share my needs, I become a burden. But I realized that sharing my needs is actually like empowering, and it helps a ripple effect, like what your son did for you. He's taken everything you've taught him, and now he's doing that for you, and he's going to do it for other kids in probably his class and his friends that he meets. And that's just like the ripple effect we're creating. And I think it's beautiful that we don't always get it right, but that's the whole point, that we're teaching our kids that, mum and dad make mistakes, because I think sometimes kids look at your mum and dad and they go, God, mum and dad, like, for these, not for everybody, but you look up to these caregivers and you're like, they've got it all figured out. No, we don't. And we say this to the kids all the time. Me and dad don't have it figured out. We sat with them and said, dad sometimes gets angry, and that's okay. And I remember Chris was crying a few weeks ago about something, and the eldest said, men don't cry, dad. And Chris turned around to him and said, they actually do. It's a sign of strength, because I am really upset about something. It's okay. Crying's a release. And that's good for him to see that, and I think that's beautiful for them to see. But a lot of men would just bottle that up and suppress it. And I think the more we suppress our feelings, the more sick we get. And
Absolutely.
I
I mean,
feel it like
that's
if I've not,
facts at this
yeah,
point.
if I've not
Stress,
felt
like
and felt,
stress is one of the biggest killers.
yeah, disease, like it is that it's a disease, like you're not at ease. And I think that flow, it's stopped, and it's the stagnant in the body, that somatic stuff. Like it's just, there's something in the body, and when you meditate and you go within, like, and you move into the body and breath work, it helps to just figure out, okay, I've got tension in my back, or I've got tension somewhere here, and you feel it, and you're like, okay, I want to move that. And then for me, if I suppress, I get a headache. Like I don't get many migraines, but I probably get two a year maybe, and I know they come when I suppress. I know they come when I suppress my emotions. And my body is a big, huge reminder that I need to listen to my body, because my body is telling me a lot of things. It's saying, hey, I need to start moving a bit more now. I've got sciatic pain that's coming a few times. I went to the osteo yesterday. Yoga's coming up for me. I need to keep doing yoga. My body's like, hey, I'm here. Take some time to listen to me, because the body is where the emotion is stored. And I feel like that, that release is just, oh, it's just the best feeling when you do release it.
Yes. And it creates space for
Yeah.
all of the other feelings. And, like I was saying in the pleasure practices I've gone into with anger, the feelings afterwards, because obviously I'm working with sexual energy as well. I've had business ideas, I've had like laughter, I've had joy, because we're creating space every time we let something be felt, right? Creating space for opportunity, for expansion. There's probably one final piece to this message, and that's around, if we have expressed harmful words, actions towards another due to things like anger, is own your shit. Like own it, whether it's your children or your partner or friends or whoever it is. Thank you. It's a nice big cough on mute. Then, having the respect not only for the other people involved, but for yourself, to be like, not I'm sorry for feeling angry.
No.
But I'm sorry for my harmful words or my actions. That was never okay. It's never okay. And you don't deserve for someone to be treating you in that way. And here's the things that I'm going to do, that I will do next time I'm feeling anger, and I'll really take responsibility for that. You make amends, and there's so much power in owning our fuck ups.
Yeah.
And not allowing it to define us and, change the view we have of ourselves. But it can bring you so much closer together with the people, especially the people you care about dearly, when you can go, hey, first of all, the owning of it, but have some ideas of the things, like all the things we've spoken about, that you can do next time. So you can go and say to the person, like, I've reflected on this, and here's the things that I'm going to take some responsibility for. And you might also be able to say, if you're in that dynamic of, here's some things I'm going to ask for your support with, like if maybe you could do this or that could be done differently, that would be really supportive for me when I'm starting to feel that frustration or anger, and have a conversation about it. Again, it's
Yeah.
like us together. What can we be doing? I have these conversations with my kids. I'm like, okay, what can we be doing better, team? Because remember, one of me, three of you, different needs, different things, but how can we all work together to be most supportive? And in my partnership, we have these reflective conversations of, hey, what could I have done that would have been a bit more supportive? This is what I could have done, this is what you could have done. And it's really important. It's an important part of this conversation around reclaiming and reframing anger, is also
Yeah.
owning the times when we haven't acted in full alignment.
I love that. And it adds to my last piece of when we are feeling anger, we have to remember to, on the back of what Shawi said, the responsibility of that it's us that made ourselves angry, and we've got to stop doing this, because this
Absolutely.
becomes a weapon, it becomes a sword, it becomes a hot whatever, and it becomes this like, you made me angry. And we've been teaching the kids this of like, well, he made me angry. And I said, no, his behavior may not have been okay, but for you to feel anger, it came from your body, came from your body and your emotions. And that's okay. And that's okay. Like his behavior, like I said, it wasn't okay. Like something that we all have different needs and boundaries. And I think when it comes to taking responsibility of when you start to have a deeper awareness, and you'll get there, I promise, your language changes. How, like Shawi's teaching me every day, like how to have language. And I think there's like I mentioned last week on one of the books I'm reading from the yoga couple about inner work with relationships, and that's including friendships, of how we share how we feel. So not actually saying, hey, I'm sorry for being angry, because we're allowed to be angry, is that, hey, I'm sorry for the way I spoke to you, because I'm really moving through this emotion of anger right now, and it's new for me and I'm exploring it, and my nervous system was dysregulated at the time, and I felt like I was in a fight flight mode, and just how that's different, like that language to being like, hey, I'm sorry I was angry, I
Oh,
was a bit of a
feels
dick, sorry.
completely different.
It's just the intellectual awareness around, like, if someone came to me with that conversation, I'd be like, oh my fucking God, like, go you, fuck me. I'd just be like, that's
Yeah.
incredible what you're doing. Like, I was triggered yesterday with one of Shawi's amazing friends. She posted something that really triggered me, and I messaged her about it, and it was from a beautiful place. I said, I love this picture, but this picture really triggered me. And I told her why, and she shared her perception, and I just was like, I honor that in you. Like, that's so beautiful that we get to share, like, when I was uncomfortable,
Mm,
and
mm,
not be, what's the word, like, not be shamed for it, but be like
mm-hmm.
welcoming that we all have different perceptions, we have different cultures, we've been brought up differently. And that she said, what I love what you've just done, Pip, is your vulnerability and honesty. And I said, same for you.
Mm,
And that's the space I want to create, is that when you're angry, it's okay. And if you want to share that with someone, like, okay, like something I did or something someone else did at work, or a partner or a child, whatever it is, like, you moving through anger is your responsibility. But when you're out the other end and you feel okay to share it, well, that's one thing I think as another episode we can talk about, is the Dan Siegel theory of flipping the lid. When we flip our lid, we're not thinking rationally. So we don't think rationally. So the irrational brain is just like, we just see rage. We can't think rationally in our brain. So it's like, when can we honor ourselves to be like, hey, I'm feeling anger, I'm going to go take some space to move through it. We'll revisit this conversation when I feel in a better space to, I don't want to say anything I don't want, I don't mean, because how many times do we get into those arguments and we say things we don't mean just because we want to hurt the other person? Been there, done it in the past. But now it comes from a place of, I'm really sorry I said those things. I really didn't mean them. I'm just moving through an emotion of anger, which is really new for me. Your patience and your
right.
patience and your compassion
Mhm.
is beautiful, and I thank you for that. It just, them conversations are different, aren't they? And I think that's,
Completely different.
yeah. And I couldn't have had that conversation 10 years ago. I'd be like, what the fuck is that about? Like, I don't know what that's about. But now I get to have the conversations, and it's really empowering to share that from that perspective.
Mm,
So we've got to stop doing this,
yeah.
pointing the finger.
Do this instead.
Yes. All this.
Yeah, all this. Yes. All
Oh,
this.
yes, 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 yes.
For
Get
anyone
yourself
that
on Love
doesn't
Honey
watch
and
the
get yourself a
YouTube, you have to
toy.
go and watch it now, because we just gave you some great tips.
Just great visuals. Oh. But you can turn it, like you said, sexual and sensual energy is just a really amazing way how to navigate through.
Mm.
Yeah.
Beautiful. This has been
Lovely
a great
conversation.
conversation. Thanks for diving into anger with us, friends. And, you know, if there have been some uncomfortable parts of it, or you're recognizing some behaviors within yourself, we love you in that. And we appreciate the fact that you're allowing yourself to feel some things from this. And as always, if you would like some extra support, you can reach out to us.
Mm.
Mm.
Always here. Love you guys.
Love you. Love you.